If you own a home in Florida, you felt it. Your insurance bill doubled, maybe tripled, and nobody told you what to actually do about it. That changes right now. I've got Florida's insurance commissioner on the show, and by the end of this video, you'll have 3 specific moves that can knock real money off your premium this year, starting with one that just saved a guy in this room $6,000. Stick with me to the end because the third move is free money most homeowners never even claim.
Well, we've done this amazing thing where we put $10 trillion of property value and 23 million people on a narrow peninsula that is surrounded by 2 bodies of water that like to throw storms our way. So we've got a tremendous risk profile in the state of Florida. And then on top of that, in the years beginning in 2015, 2016, we saw a cottage industry of explosive litigation that compounded those natural problems that always made insurance a bit more expensive than everywhere else in the country, that caused it to skyrocket and go out of control.
I'm Bruce Woodburn, the Loner Ranger. With me is Florida Insurance Commissioner Mike Yaworsky and realtor Tom McNamara. And we're cutting through the noise so you can save money and stay in your home. Florida represents a small percentage of the nation's homeowner insurance claims, but disproportionate amount of a large percentage of lawsuits. What's driving that imbalance?
So pre-reform, it was our one-way attorney fee statute, and the exact number was, for example, in 2019, Florida accounted for 8% of all property claims in the United States, but 76% of all property claim litigation in the United States. So we were disproportionately out of control when it comes to our litigation, and it was incentive-oriented. It was because we had a law on the books that was intended for the best of reasons, but the consequences of it were that if you sued your insurer and you won, then the insurance company, which really means the people who have policies with that company, had to pay for all the legal fees associated with that claim. And so we saw abusive, bad acting trial attorneys that were engaging in this space and litigating every single chance they could. We did repeal the one-way attorney fee statute in 2022. We repealed the AOB provisions a little bit before that, and we're seeing net benefit results to the policyholder. The reality is, if we hadn't made those reforms, the market probably would have collapsed in Florida.
But how much impact has that really had so far?
It's been impressive. For the first time in probably over a decade, the insurance commissioner had to order a refund of all Progressive policyholders to the amount of $1 billion to Florida policyholders who had that. So you should be seeing success in auto. If you're not, you should be shopping your policy because there may be a better way.
I actually got one of those Progressive rebates, so thank you. So I do understand that a lot of insurance companies on the homeowner side have actually filed for rate reductions.
Since the reforms, we've had over 105 rate reductions or 0% rate increase requests. Florida ranked as the lowest rate increase state in the country in 2024.
Here's what those reforms actually did. Florida's home insurers went from deep losses back to profit. And according to S&P Global, in 2024, Florida had the lowest average homeowners rate increase in the entire country, only about 1%. That's the turnaround the commissioner is describing. There's also more insurance companies coming back in or entering the market right now. Are you finding that there's more interest in Florida? Because, it looked like a mass exodus at one point there.
When we talk to companies and people interested in doing a business in Florida, they would say that actuarial process, we can rate around the catastrophe risk. We can rate around, reinsurance troubles that may exist. What we can't predict around is the social inflation, the litigation, the tort environment that Florida has. And so by correcting that, we've reversed that trend, and we have a lot of interest. In fact, 21 additional companies have entered the market, hibernation mode to protect themselves and stay solvent during the bad years. They're writing again. Our largest carrier is now State Farm Florida. Anyone around during 2008, 2009 would be shocked to hear that probably, but they're our biggest writer once again. So we're seeing those national companies take renewed interest. It's just good for everybody to have more options available.
What's the biggest obstacle preventing premiums from coming down right now?
Inflation is a major factor. We set rates at the state level. We don't set the premium. And so rate is how much it costs per brick of insurance to rebuild your home. And premium is a multiplication of those numbers of bricks.
And if inflation is up, the cost of that brick went up. So the more insurance you're going to need for replacement costs.
That's exactly right. And so labor costs, goods, all those things We saw a tremendous explosion in the average total insured value of our entire marketplace, almost doubled between 2020 and 2024. So a lot of it was inflationary pressure.
Now the part you can actually use. The state's My Safe Florida Home program gets you a free wind mitigation inspection and a matching grant, up to $10,000, 2 state dollars for every one of yours, towards a stronger roof, impact windows, or shutters. Those upgrades can cut your premium by up to half. Since 2022, the state has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in grants, and lawmakers just added more funding for 2026. So if you qualify, get on the list.
There's a program out there, My Safe Florida Home, that has hundreds of millions of dollars set aside to help people harden their homes against storms, things like roofs, windows. Is that helping to reduce claims and lowering insurance costs?
Yeah, I think the idea is the healthier the garden, the more fruits you're going to get. Florida's been a leader in this since really the early 2000s. Florida first went to a unified building code across the state, building code that is hurricane sound. It's the best in the country at this point. That's been great. Why not help them with some grant dollars to get that extra resiliency in place, which helps them. It helps them during a catastrophe because they don't have that added cost of losing your home, but it also helps their insurance rates throughout the year, and it may help at resale. So it's a great program. If you haven't had an 1802 mandatory mitigation credit inspection done on your home, you should absolutely do that. It requires insurers to give you discounts for certain features of your home. And so
we'll make sure that we add that to our website as well. Tell us again, that's the 1802?
That's the 1802 Uniform Mitigation Credit Program.
That's the wind mitigation inspection, correct?
Okay, so that's our wind mitigation.
I did it on mine recently, and just looking at the numbers from the carrier, I want to say it dropped my bill like $6,000. It was crazy how much it is, right?
That inspection has a name, the Uniform Mitigation Form 1802. Every Florida insurer has to honor, and it can knock a big chunk off the wind part of your premium. Florida just updated the 1802 this year to give credit for things like stronger roofs and better connections. If you've never had one done, that's money sitting on the table.
So wind mitigation is just part of it. What about impact windows, hurricane shutters, roof improvements, even deductible choices? Are those making a difference for folks too?
Huge difference. And so, and the 1802 does cover things like impact resistant windows, shutters, things like that. You will get a credit for that as well on those things. And we're in the process of updating it to recognize things like metal roofs. There's tremendous data around the value of a metal roof, as long as it's installed correctly, and other features. So we've done a number of studies and reports to incorporate into the next generation of the 1802 form, and we're making sure insurers apply it.
That takes somebody to be aware of what their insurance actually is covering, that they're not overpaying or over-insuring, but you have enough insurance. Tom, you also had a question regarding roofs.
And here's the part most people miss. Your insurance bill isn't just a bill. It's baked into your monthly payment, and your monthly payment is what a lender uses to decide how much home you can be approved for. So when you lower that premium, you actually can change what you qualify for. In a tight market, that can be the difference between losing the house and winning it. If you're buying or refinancing anywhere in Florida, send me your numbers and I'll show you for free exactly what a lower premium does to your approval. Links right below.
Yeah, for sure. So, roofs are the biggest frustration I face on a daily basis with buyers. The big question, the big concern that people throw out there is, why do I have to replace my roof at 15 years? Why is the insurance company able to force me to do this?
Even if your roof is in good shape.
Simple asphalt shingle roofs do not hold up against the Florida sun for longer than 10 years. They keep the water out after 10 years, but that adhesive sealant that is sealing them and keeping them down in a high wind event is not holding up. Now shingle, I got in a lot of trouble a couple of years ago by Big Shingle because I said that it was time to get rid of that, to write them out in Florida or something. But shingle roofs are a problem in Florida for the resiliency. However, one thing to keep in mind is that Florida law does say that if your insurance company says they're not going to renew you because of the roof, you can have an inspection done on that roof. And if a licensed individual says that roof has 5 years or more of life left, they can't non-renew you for that reason. And so that's a new law that was added as part of the reform package in 2022.
Now, a quick one to write down. Under a 2022 Florida law, your insurer can't drop you just because your roof is old. If a licensed inspector certifies your roof has 5 or more years of life left, they have to keep covering. Know that right. It saves people from a forced replacement.
The question that I have on that is, because it's now an older roof, does that mean you're going to pay a higher premium?
Well, they're going to ask you that at the outset either way, so that it doesn't impact the kind of the baseline. They know how old the roof is. One of the challenges with roofs is that there was a lot of abuse that took place during the kind of the peak season, especially in 21, 22. And insurance is not meant to be a warranty product. And shingles are more like tires on your car. When you get in an accident and the tire is part of the damage, it's covered. However, if it's just normal wear and tear, it's typically not covered.
I think that was one of the biggest abusers right there. But people would fall into that because you'd get a knock on the doors saying, hey, I'm doing the Anderson's house down the street over there, and it looks like you may have some damage too. Well, meanwhile, you got a 12-year-old roof and you're asking your insurance company to pay for it. That is maintenance cost, and that is abuse. So in my opinion, that's insurance fraud right there.
It would be case specific, obviously, but I think that's where we really get into that question of abusive behavior. And what's good for that individual who got that new roof is systemically not good. When there are issues of claims being denied due to any reason, whether it's a roof or something else, we like to hear about it.
People don't want to make a claim because they feel like they're either going to get canceled or their insurance premium is going to go through the roof if they make a claim. Can you shed a little light on that for us?
Generally speaking, one claim, filing a claim, regardless of its disposition, is not going to raise your rates. And what I always tell, and what a responsible insurer or an agent will tell, especially following a catastrophe, if you've had some damage but you have a hurricane deductible, but you don't think it's going to meet that deductible, you should still file that claim. One of the things about the hurricane deductible specifically is that it's for the entire calendar year. So if we did have a second event and you had more damage during that calendar year that did cover the deductible, that all applies at that point. We always encourage people to file claims when they think they have damage and see if they're being paid correctly.
Getting a new insurance policy while you're in the middle of the claim.
Mike, a few years back, I had some roof damage, and it was legitimate, I think, roof damage. Several roofers told me it was. I submitted a claim. I was rejected, denied. I ended up suing them. Well, that took 3 years. And during that 3 years, my rate went from about $3,500 up to over $8,000. And I couldn't leave that company because I was in suit with them. Because if I'm suing a doctor for malpractice, I'm certainly not going back to that doctor. Why can't I leave my insurance company when I'm in the middle of litigation with them?
Well, you can typically leave them. It's finding another company that will take you at that time that becomes difficult because you're in active litigation. Because you're in that active litigation, there's an assumption in place that you believe there's damage to your home, which makes it more difficult for them to underwrite. Citizens will take people in situations if they are non-renewed and they have an active claim that is taking place. So there is always that avenue that does come up. We have that provision in place for situations like that so that you don't not have insurance because you're involved in active litigation. It sounds like you had an experience where you believe there was bona fide damage to your home. The insurer fought back. These are the things we like to hear about so that we know if there's a problem in the claims handling process, the adjustment process, where they're not paying that claim properly. We've seen a lot of that. That's a national issue at this point. Once we see enough of anything beyond what appears like a blip or a one-off, we start to launch investigations and other things.
And I guess to start that conversation with your department, you can give us the website and we'll put it on the podcast so that
Absolutely.
people know where to go. And speaking of citizens insurance, it grew dramatically in recent years. And I think you're making progress in moving homeowners back into the private sector right now. And why is that important?
Great question. Citizens basically did what it was designed to do, which was we had this huge disruption within the marketplace, lack of affordability, availability. capacity generally, and it grew substantially. It had 1.4 million policies. So it had grown dramatically. It had kind of taken on that risk. We went through those difficult years. So it shrunk dramatically in the past couple of years. I think, in all fairness, I think we'll see some growth back into it as kind of the market settles a little bit. We have a large residual market in Florida. The bottom line of why that's important is because Citizens is special. It's a state-owned property insurer that our insurer of last resort that is out there. And if there was an impairment where it didn't have enough money to pay claims, then all of us would have to pay part of that bill.
That'd be a huge problem.
It'd be a huge problem.
They integrated the 20% rule, where if you can get insurance for 20% more than Citizens, then you have to take it. 21%, Citizens will insure it, but 20%.
The goal with it long term is to make sure we have a system in place that has that last affordability option, that last resort option that is Citizens, but that also allows for the private market to come in and compete with good options that are delivering good results for consumers. The vast majority of people who are in Citizens because there is no private option available to them.
One more on Citizens. The state's insurer of last resort. It ballooned to about 1.4 million policies back in 2023. But as private companies came back, the state's been moving people off of it fast. And it's no longer the largest insurer in Florida. That's another sign the market is healing.
So, Mike, looking ahead, we're having this conversation, say 2 years from now. What do you think needs to happen for Floridians, homeowners, to feel more comfortable with what they're really paying for insurance?
For 2 years now, we've attempted to bring forward more transparency to the industry, to consumers. Most consumers would be surprised to know that the vast majority of their money goes to either pay claims or for reinsurance. And one of the things we wanted to do was put on the deck page of every single homeowner's policy a simple graph demonstrating where their dollar is going. 25, 30% is going for reinsurance, 40% is going to pay for claims, and the rest is really administrative and adjusting fees. There's a misconception that it's a savings account or that it's all being dividended out or something else. It's not that profitable of a business typically. It's a steady 4%, 5% profit in good years, and then minor losses in bad years is what you typically see over time in insurance. Not repealing any of the measures we passed, not taking the success and turning our back on it, is letting these things play out and then looking at adjustments in a couple of years on what can be done to improve the system.
People need to realize that you do need to shop your insurance every other year, but you definitely need to shop it. I even reshopped it with my own company and I got results from it. So just kind of closing things out here for homeowners listening to the show today, what's the single biggest misconception about Florida homeowners insurance? What do you wish everybody understood?
Shop your policy. I had an experience myself where I was with an agent and they called to renew my policy, and I said, well, have you shopped it around? And they said, no, but we can put you on a list for next year to look it up. Well, I switched agents.
I want it now.
Yeah, that's not adequate to me. If a rule of thumb for me is always, if your agent is not shopping that policy once a year when they're calling you to renew, you need a better agent. But
we have good ones and we have some that are a little bit greedy, and they just know that premium is going to come into them and they don't want to shop it because they're going to lose a little bit of money.
Recognition that living in Florida, a lot of things are cheaper in Florida. Some things are more expensive in Florida. It's overall a fantastic place to live. Insurance is always going to be a bit more here. And it's going to be something that we need to build for. We're never going to be the cheapest place to insure.
No, I don't. I think that's good advice. And I think people need to realize if you want to live here, then you're going to pay a little bit more for an insurance premium.
So here's what you got to do. Move one, shop your policy every single year. The commissioner does it, I do it, and it works. Don't let an agent stall you till next year. Move two, get your Wind Mitigation 1802 inspection. That's the one that cut Tom's bill by $6,000, and most homeowners have never even heard of it, let alone done it. Move three, go to My Safe Florida Home. Free inspection, plus a matching grant up to $10,000 to harden your house and drop your premium, sometimes by even half. That's the free money I told you about. Do those 3 and you could save more this year than you'd save refinancing. And when you are ready to buy or refinance, that lower payment means more house. Tap the link to start your application or just call me, Bruce Woodburn, the Loan Arranger, 407-250-9144. Hit subscribe. I post on this channel to help homeowners and future homeowners like you. I'll see you in the next one.